we have to deal with ourselves. Okay? And in dealing with ourselves, is how we deal with ourselves in many cases will determine how we deal with others. Okay? It will just, and so that means that if you, from a personal standpoint, from your relationship with God, and we have to say God because the foundation of when we're dealing with this relationship thing is love, and God is love. Okay, so we definitely want to deal with it from a God perspective. That is first and foremost, and that is most important. Okay, I go back to the beginning. The reason why God made man and woman was for relational purposes, and it was to be a representation of what was already going on with Him, which is, some call it, we call it the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And as we go into the book of Genesis and read that, and let's read that real quick, because I want that to be something that we deal with, because it's going to be very, very important that while we're dealing with these things, we want to deal with them from a godly perspective, because God is the foundation of this thing. Because if you don't go to the foundation of something, how can you build on something that you don't even know what you're building on? And that's going to be most important. When I talk about the Trinity, we're talking about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So let's go to Genesis, the first chapter. Genesis, the first chapter. And we'll read verses 1. I'll read verses 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And it goes as follows. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Okay? Now, the important part is here is you actually just witnessed the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in action from the beginning of time. Because when God created it, which is God, the one, and then the Spirit hovered over it, which is the Holy Spirit, then God spoke and said, "Let there be." And so when you deal with all three of those, basically God was omnipresent in Him creating the earth. And when I say omnipresent, I mean God is everywhere at the same time. Okay? Now, notice this. Even though God is, and we said this before, even though God is singular, God can be spoke of on the plural standpoint, from the plural standpoint, which means that He's one, but He's more than one. It's almost like He's multifaceted. Okay? Which means that if He's multifaceted, that means that He can do three different things, but it still be Him. Does that make any sense? Now, once we get that, and once we understand that, now we're going to understand relationships. Because everything that God creates is to mirror who He is. Everything. So when He say when God made us in His image, when we talk about in the image of God, if God is omnipresent, now we're not going to be three people, right? But we're going to be many people that's supposed to be one people that represents the one God. Does it make any sense? So that means that even though that all of us are sitting in here and we come from different backgrounds and from different places, we have just now, tonight, when we entered in here, we entered into a relationship. Okay? That was created by a fellowship. That was created by the same interest. So when you're talking about a relationship, not only is love the most important thing, but the same interest is also the important thing. Because the same interest is what creates the fellowship. Okay? And it is through the fellowship that you get to know the one that you are now in relationship with. And the more we fellowship with each other, the more we understand each other. But everything still has to point back to God. Okay? Does that make any sense? So I hope I ain't sounding like, Charlie Brown. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? Because my mind can click so many places so many times. You know, I may know exactly what I'm saying, but you may be like, all right, Pastor, slow it down. Okay? So let's still keep this in mind. Relationships are to mirror who God is. And that's why relationships were created. You know, we talk about love the Lord thy God, right? With all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And then it says the second one is as important as the first, and in many cases more important. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right? So we got that. But now we have to realize that even relationships now are categorized. We don't have the same relationship with everybody. Even though we can fellowship with some people, we don't have the same relationship with some people that we have with others. Okay? We talk about this thing called the Greek loves. You know, you got the eros, you got the philios, you got the storge, and of course we got the agape. Okay? The agape is supposed to represent God, which is unconditional. Right? And then we got the eros, it's supposed to be in some cases it can be a romantic type of thing. You know, it can be a marriage thing. You know, it can be, when I studied eros, I also studied that eros doesn't necessarily have to be between just a man and a woman in terms of relationship with each other. It can also be on the basis of a best friend. A best friend that you would share something with that you won't just share with anybody. So eros can also go into that category. So when we talk about that category, now when we deal with the philios, that can be like a brotherly type of love. And when you deal with the storge, it can be someone like a family type of love. But it's the agape love that's supposed to mirror the right relationships. Okay? Now, even though we say the agape love is a God love, which is a love that is not based on conditions, it's based on what it is. And it's based on who it is. And people, why is that going to be important? That is going to be important is even when we're talking about forming what I call lifetime relationships with a marriage or so, until you know who you are in God, by yourself, with you in God, then it's almost impossible for you to go with somebody else and y'all be complete if you're not complete before you try to be complete. Does that make any sense? So that means that if I'm sitting here half and you half, if we get together, that ain't going to make a completeness. Because I am not walking in the fullness of what God has made me to even know what my likes and my dislikes really are. Because people, let's not get personality traits, quality traits mixed up with selfish desires. And mixed up with our own idiosyncrasies, which means stuff that is likes and dislikes with us that may drive some people crazy that we base the relationship on, when the relationship should not be based on whether or not I tighten the toothpaste. Right? You know, I should be able to get along with that, because people, if we think about it, if we go to 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, and we will go back there, once we start dealing with that, we're going to deal with it. There's some stuff that we're supposed to take. But the stuff that we're taking is not based on just our relationship with God, but the stuff that we're taking is if it's our own idiosyncrasies, if it's our own likes and dislikes, I can't put this person that I'm not supposed to be a life partner with in the same category. Now, when it comes to love, you know, when it comes to forgiveness, yes. But when you're talking about trying to get this person to accept that, you know, I'm a neat freak. You see what I'm saying? That ain't necessarily a spiritual thing. You know, which means that in some cases, that if I'm going to get with somebody, some of that stuff I need to calm down. Why? It's because now we are not trying to meet on my standard. We're trying to find a happy medium. If that makes any sense. And so when we find that happy medium, that means even on that happy medium, that it ain't going to be so happy all the time. Because now I may be walking in my idiosyncrasies, and this other person says, you tripping.
But if they understand that's something that you like or that you want, if you are a neat freak and they understand that,
Right.
then they can follow that.
They can follow that,
Right.
you know, which means that there's also a give and take.
There you go.
Because
Right.
that's where love bears all things can come in.
Right.
That's where the honesty comes in.
And that's where the honesty-
That's right. Because once you establish that from the beginning, before you even pursue a relationship,
Right. There
you
it's
go.
already
Right.
out on the front streets, already on the table. They already know what time it is.
That's
So
right.
and them issues come up, they should know how to deal with
Right.
it. Ain't no need to
And
keep
in
them
very,
secret.
very few times that even in our communication, putting things on Front Street is everything on Front Street.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's true.
Which means that, you know, I could have said that I said something when I really didn't say it. I was thinking it, but it never came out. And people, believe it or not, you do know that we communicate that way without even saying something, but we're hoping and thinking that people get what we say when we're thinking it and not actually saying it.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen off the bat, because you've seen people who are in a relationship and it seems as if one is saying something and thinking it and the other person can just come right, smoothly communicate exactly what they're saying, and they go, yeah.
You know what? A lot of
You
people
know?
don't know. A lot of people don't know how to read body language. A lot of things with people, especially when you created some type of communication, some type of vibe or chemistry, tend to read body language. You can read the way somebody stand. You
Right.
can read. I mean, certain things they say, they able to pick up on what you're going to say and finish the rest of
If
your
you're that
sentence.
close to 'em.
Yeah, when
If
you're
you're
that close to them.
Right, right,
But other
right.
people don't. They don't even know how to read themselves, so therefore they don't know how to read body language. So that's where a lot of distractions comes in.
Right.
That's a distraction.
Distraction. And you're right. I would have to, I would gather to say the distraction is a very large part. I have to say that. It's because distractions can just get you all off of track of what's most important. Because it's almost like I've had arguments, and after we finish arguing, what we arguing
You
about?
don't realize it.
Where is that?
And it's almost like, even if I say I apologize, what am I apologizing for if I don't actually know what I've just done? You know, so now you have to go back to this body language thing. What is in this body language thing? You know, what is in this thing that you want me to think what you want me to think when I can't think that because I'm not you?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So what is that? You know, so now that is a distraction, because now, you know, I've even gone so far as to say that a person had a dream, right? A dream that a person was doing something, but he was not actually doing it, but because they dreamt it, they thought that they were doing it. So now they're coming at them as if they did, when the person looked at them like,
Well, what is it?
you see what I'm saying? I mean, literally, in my first marriage, now I had my wife woke up and just hit me. What's wrong with you? I know you did it. Did what? She tripped it. And you do know that a lot of times, even when it comes to dreams, dreams can come from speculation, which becomes your interpretation, which will be played out in a sense that you understand when nobody else does. That's a whole nother subject within itself. That's why people, in many cases, that's why I said we need to turn the TV off when we go to sleep.
That's right.
Because it does. The TV plays stuff to you subconsciously, and you are literally, in some cases, acting it out in senses that you understand.